Hello, I want you to consider something. What if the biggest limitation in your whole life isn't your circumstances? What if it isn't your past? What if it isn't other people? What if it's a story? A story you've repeated so many times, you've mistaken it for yourself. A story about who you are, what you're capable of, what you deserve, and even what is possible. A story that may have been running your life for decades without you even realizing it. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Hello, and welcome to the Aligned Human Project. I'm Elgin, and today we're diving into one of the most important questions you can ever ask. Who are you beneath the stories you've been told and the stories you've been telling yourself? Because until we understand that, we'll keep mistaking conditioning for identity. Human beings are meaning-making creatures. We don't simply experience life. We create stories about life. Visualize or imagine these. A child gets criticized. A story forms. Maybe it's, I'm not good enough. A child feels invisible. A story forms. I don't matter. A child becomes responsible for everyone else's emotions. And a story forms. My needs don't matter. The event ends, but the story remains. And eventually, the story becomes identity. The child isn't trying to create a limiting belief. The child is trying to make sense in this world, make sense of the world. And meaning is how humans survive uncertainty. So the child asks, what does this mean about me? And whatever answer they land on becomes the beginning point of identity. From the time we are really young, we are taught how to make safety within this world. Just think about it. We've got a small child. We've either done it if we're parents or we've had it done to us. At least the chances are high. And it sounds something like this. Mummy's mad because you did blank. Or mummy's really happy because you did blank. See, the problem with both of those statements is it makes the child responsible for the adult's emotions. And even though we as adults maybe get that it's not, that we've been triggered, I don't think for the most part when we're in that situation that we really do. And so we create meaning and the child goes, okay, got it. So if I'm a good girl or a good boy, then good things happen. Mommy's happy. And when I'm a bad girl or boy, then bad things happen. Mommy and dad are angry. There's a punishment. They leave. And so everything that happens afterwards, the child puts through that perception. It becomes like a filter, a pair of glasses that they wear. And so then every single time something good happens or something bad happens, they make a story that it comes in connection to their worth, their value, who they are and how they appear in this world. And we don't do that to hurt ourselves. We don't do that to create suffering. Children do this to create meaning, and meaning becomes a belief. But then belief becomes an identity. Identity ends up shaping our behaviors. See, the adaptation in the beginning makes a lot of sense. It's just that once we get here, it's time for us to shift. See, the brain loves familiar stories. Now, this is where things get really interesting, at least if you're into my geeky stuff. But most of us assume that if a story isn't true, we'll eventually stop believing it. But that's not actually how the brain works. The brain isn't primarily concerned about truth. It's concerned with prediction because prediction is safe. And the brain wants to know what's coming next. It wants to make the world feel understandable. And the easiest way to do that is to keep repeating what is already familiar. Just think about it. If a child grows up believing they're not good enough, the brain begins organizing reality around that assumption, not because it's true, but because it's known. And over time, the brain gets very efficient at gathering evidence to support the identity. You don't notice the compliments. You maybe even are uncomfortable with them, but you certainly notice the criticisms. You don't remember the successes, your wins. You remember your mistakes. You don't focus on the people who see your value. You focus on the person who doesn't. The brain becomes a lawyer defending the identity, not a scientist searching for truth. And the longer a story is repeated, the more automatic it becomes. So eventually it moves into the background of awareness. You don't hear the story anymore. You simply experience life through it. And this is one of the reasons people can change jobs, relationships, cities, businesses, even entire lifestyles, and still find themselves feeling the same way. Because wherever the identity goes, the story goes. The circumstances changed, but the lens, those glasses that we're wearing, they did not. And when the lenses don't change, we often recreate the same emotional reality, just in a different form. We will see this in all sorts of ways. I'll give you a personal experience. I started working with a friend of mine who is a psychotherapist, and she specializes in emotional freedom technique. Her name is Carol Look. So we start working together. And I want to talk to her about abundance. And as we're going through these limiting beliefs, we go back, and we hit the story of my first husband. So if you haven't heard my story before, at 18 years old, I was married for the first time. My first husband turned out to be a sociopath. By the age of 20, I finally escaped. The grounds of this were physical, mental, emotional, and sexual cruelty, like 14 counts of adultery, and I'd lost 5 pregnancies. A fairly traumatic time in my life. So we're going through abundance and limiting beliefs and worth and value and all these things. And I'm looking at like these blocks that are coming up in my business, my fear of even starting YouTube, of being visible. I had so many concerns. And so as we're working through them, she makes a comment to me and she said, well, of course you married your first husband. You married your mother. And I was like, well, no, my first husband was a sociopath. My mother wasn't a sociopath. And she said, no, but your mother was a narcissistic parent. And so you grew up in a time where abuse was normal, that love was conditional, and that hitting you and saying you love, that somebody hitting you and them saying that they loved you equaled the same thing. So it's not shocking that energetically this felt comfortable and normal to you. It's not shocking that you didn't notice any of those red flags other people would have, because to you, they wouldn't have flagged the same way. See, this is the problem. When we have a belief about what love looks like, about our worth or our value or what we deserve in this world, all those things, they're all different types of belief and they all filter our perception. And so my childhood had filtered my perception of what a healthy relationship looked like. And when you look back at it, you go, oh, there's no point in being upset with my mom or with my family or anybody else because it's already done. So only thing I can really do at this point is work on forgiveness and healing those wounds. And really the most important thing is becoming aware. Because once we become conscious of the patterns that we've recreated, we can start to shift them. Then we'll get these little, alarm bells that'll go off and somebody will say something or something will happen and it'll be like, ding, 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 ding. Wait a minute. This feels familiar and not in a good way. And so we can use that familiar feels true, but start to recognize through clarity, through understanding, through presence, what, even though it maybe feels true or it feels comfortable, how it's not actually safe and it's not healthy. So awareness becomes the great filter that we can start shifting our life with. So instead of recreating these past traumas and dramas over and over and over again, which I had done in relationship after relationship, we can start to shift them like rungs on a ladder. We get a little bit better, a little bit better. Or we can take some time to ourselves, heal those wounds, and make a much bigger jump into just a way healthier relationship. But the point here is identity ends up filtering our perceptions. Familiar starts feeling true, and confirmation bias reinforces the story. And then the brain seeks coherence, even if that is chaos. We're just gathering more and more evidence for who we think we are. Now, this is where Michael Singer and Eckhart Tolle enter into the conversation, two of my favorite mentors. So the voice inside your head, it is not you. The story is not you. And the identity is not you. The adaptation is not you. The thought is not you. The emotion is not you. You are the awareness, the one that notices it all. This is the witness. And the moment awareness sees the story, that spell begins to break. This doesn't mean the story isn't real. It doesn't mean it didn't hurt. It doesn't mean what happened to you doesn't matter. All those things mattered, but it means that the story is something you have, not something you are. And that's an incredibly important distinction. That is an experience. It's not the sum of you. See, for a long time, I believed it was. I believed that I was this person that was not deserving of love. I believed that I was obviously a person that people didn't care for or respect or treat as something precious. That was the stories I had. But there's this beautiful gift that happens when we start to read books, listen to great mentors, whether those through books, podcasts, movies, whatever that is. The more that we inundate ourselves with information about what health is, what vitality is, what does healthy relationships look like. In terms of our spiritual journey, there's a reason why I turn far more to the spiritual line as we're doing these things, because we don't talk about the fact that we're not our thoughts. We don't talk about the fact that that voice inside our head is not true. See, for years, I thought that voice inside my head was me. So every time it said, you're not worthy of love, I believed it. But the thing is Michael Singer calls this I believe it's in The Untethered Soul, the neurotic inner roommate. In Carol Dweck's work of mindset, she talks about this voice in your head and giving it a name. In the work of Jill Bolte Taylor in Whole Brain Living, she talks about the 4 quadrants of the brain. There's like 4 voices. So for myself, I gave my roommate the name of Neurotic Nellie. And so when that begins, it's like, whose voice is that? And that voice isn't even true. That voice is like a Chicken Little that is always freaking out. It's either trying to come up with a solution for us to not get hurt, or it's freaking out that we are going to get hurt. But the voice isn't true. She's neurotic. And I can love on her because she's an aspect of me. She's an experience that I get to have every day. And sometimes she needs to be put in a timeout. Sometimes I literally just imagine I just take her out and I put her in the chair beside me and I'm like, you have to go on a timeout because you're being a little bit crazy right now, especially while we're driving. And so I'll often put her out of me and talk to her by her name. I don't call her Dawn. There's a reason I've given her a name that's not mine, because I am not my thoughts. And the same goes for our emotions. Energy in motion. Emotions are rising and falling, and they're meant to be experienced. It's part of our creative experience. So here we are, we can intentionally create thought, or we can passively just accept old thought and think that it's ours. We can intentionally create emotion, or we can experience emotion as we are experiencing the world around us. And the more sucked in we get to the drama around us, the unfortunate thing is the more we start to believe we're that experience. We shift out of being the witness. Here's Dawn experiencing, neurotic Nellie. that voice in my head. Or here's Dawn experiencing the energy, the frequency of anxiousness, of joy, of passion, of excitement. Funny how we're good with experiencing the ones that feel positive, but the dense and heavier ones we want to get away from. But we don't realize that there's a link between all of this, and it's our attachment to them. It's our identifying as our thoughts, our identifying as our emotions that actually creates our suffering. And so the more that we can shift out of this, I am the witness. I am the one experiencing these thoughts. I'm the one experiencing neurotic Nellie. I'm the one talking to her. I'm the one holding her hand and saying, you know what? Come with me. I think you're wrong. I think that we can do this. Let's go try it out. I'll be here with you the whole time. We don't think to give her a pep talk. We don't think to bring her with us and show her a new way, another option that she just hasn't experienced yet. We are not these things. We're not even the body. The body is even energy in motion. It's constantly shifting and changing. It's a process. It's a beautiful vessel for us to use to create life from. But we're not our body. Our body is collapsing energy, or energy moving slow enough for us to feel it. And so the way that we think and the emotions that we emote affect it, because they are there inside. And as they slow and densify, they create a physical experience, whether that's a feeling, whether that is a behavior, the words that come out of our mouths, the hand gestures that we make, our facial expressions, more. Even our stories. Our stories are objects in awareness. The witness, it's constant. And the truth is awareness is really what creates freedom. This is one of the reasons I love the 5 elements. Because while every human being develops survival strategies, those strategies often organize around different core stories. For example, a wood child might learn, I am valuable when I achieve. Maybe they received praise for performing, succeeding, winning, or being exceptional. Maybe accomplishment became the fastest path to love, attention, or significance. Over time, achievement stops being something they do, and it becomes who they are. A fire child might learn, I'm lovable when people like me. Perhaps connection felt unpredictable. Perhaps approval felt rewarding. Perhaps being entertaining, pleasing, or emotionally available became a way to secure belonging. Over time, they learned to monitor the room before they monitor themselves. An earth child might learn, I matter when I take care of everybody else. Maybe they didn't receive the nurturing they needed. Maybe they became the emotional caretaker of the entire family. Maybe they were praised for being such a good girl or good boy, helpful, responsible, oh, easy. And eventually they learn, if everyone else is okay, then I'm okay. A metal element child might learn, I'm worthy when I get it right. Maybe mistakes were criticized, especially by a male father figure. Maybe expectations were extremely high. Maybe excellence became the safest way to avoid judgment. Over time, perfection becomes protection. Not because they're obsessed with getting things right, because they're trying to avoid getting it wrong. And a water child might learn, I'm safe when I stay protected. Their emotion is often fear. So maybe the world felt unpredictable. Maybe conflict felt dangerous. Maybe risk carried consequences. So they learned to watch carefully, to plan carefully, to protect carefully. Safety became the priority. Different stories, different adaptions, different personalities. But underneath all of them is the same thing: a young child trying to survive and eventually mistaking the adaption for who they are. Now, this is where I think Carol Dweck's work becomes even more powerful. And this is where I think we've misunderstood human behavior for a very long time. Most people don't have what we call a fixed mindset. What they have is a survival mindset, an identity organized around safety, whether that's protection, belonging, or even predictability. The goal isn't growth. The goal is survival. And survival mindsets create, well, survival lives, survival relationships, survival leadership, survival workplaces. Not because people are broken, because the system is doing exactly what it learned to do. A mindset that has been organized around safety, security, belonging, protection, predictability. And survival mindsets create survival lives. But the moment awareness enters the system, choice becomes possible. And that's where alignment begins. I lived this way for a long time. As a wood element, I took achievement and being praised for achievements, things that I had done well, as an absolute survival mechanism, which means that changing out of that would be difficult. So if I created something that was working really well, so go back into my previous career as a lighting designer. If I go back into that time when I was doing something that was going really well, as much as I loved the change and the growth of the industry itself, myself and the way things were run was pretty predictable. And it was all based off of making sure that I continued to achieve the goals I set out and making sure that everything ran the way that it had been running. We wanted the growth in terms of numbers, but I didn't want there to be a lot of change. And when I was challenged to create some change, it often came with a lot of tension. See, I already knew how to do it well in this situation. I knew how to do it in a way that I was praised for my accomplishments. But if I changed it, now I had unpredictability. Now I didn't know that if we did something different, if I changed as a leader, if I changed the way that we were doing things, would it work? And if it didn't work, what would that mean for me? Would I still have a place? Would I be out of a job? What would happen? So then when my life was coming to a changing point and I was at a crossroads and everybody's telling me, Dawn, you're supposed to be coaching. And I'm like, absolutely not. I couldn't figure out how to make that change in a way where I could feel safe. And the truth is when we make a big change, we don't get safety. We get excitement. We get terror. We get anxiety. We get lots of things. But what we don't get is comfort. And what we don't get is predictability. And so it can be one of the most difficult things. Our nervous system just goes right offline. It starts freaking out. This is what we know. Why would we do this to ourselves? So the whole nervous system goes into a state of fight and flight. It's in this constant on position, trying to calculate the next move that is based off of something we've never done before. So of course the nervous system's not going to feel safe. Of course the neurotic inner roommate's going to be running her mouth. We don't know this. What we don't realize is that's okay. You see, we need to be gentle with ourselves because survival is intelligent. Survival's not wrong, but it's also not an identity. An awareness of these things gives us the choice. It's when we become aware of this experience that our alignment really begins, our ability to adapt to create true resiliency, not toxic resiliency. Now, if today's conversation is resonating, Please make sure you watch last week's episode of Why Your Nervous System Resists Growth. Because before we can change the story, we have to understand why the system keeps protecting it. Now let's do a quick embodied practice. Take a moment and just come into center. Ground yourself. Maybe feel your feet pressing them into the ground. Maybe feel your butt in the chair. Maybe the back against whatever's supporting it. And start to notice your breath. Notice how it ebbs and flows through the body. Notice how your body gently expands with your inhale and contracts with your exhale. That body expanding and contracting in rhythm with your breath. And then ask yourself, what story have I been repeating about myself? What do I believe about my worth, my capabilities, my relationships, my future? And then ask, is this true? Is this truth? Or is it conditioning? And then who would I be without this story? And just allow yourself to imagine that version of yourself, the version of you that no longer lives in this story. Allow yourself to just picture it and feel free to pause here to give yourself time to really imagine or visualize it with feeling, connecting to that experience. Now, if today's conversation resonated, please take the free 5-element alignment assessment below. It will help you uncover your survival patterns, your emotional adaptations, your leadership tendencies, as well as your unconscious stories. Because awareness is what creates choice. And choice changes everything. The story isn't the problem. Mistaking the story for yourself is. Most human suffering comes from mistaking conditioning for identity. Awareness reveals it. Conditioning explains it. And alignment transforms it. And creation expresses it. So keep pausing, keep feeling, and keep choosing. And remember, you are the witness. You shape your field, and your field shapes your life.